In 2017, I wanted Dawn of War 3 to be good. Probably more than most people. My most watched video at the time was me asking for it to exist, and while everyone was fixating on Gabriel Angelo's backflipping, I was arguing for its merits on forums. I pre-ordered it and played the whole campaign, and then found that everyone was pretty much right. Something felt off, and it took me a while to name it. I've been listening to the same generic music the whole time, with no racial themes, nothing telling me whose army I was. The turrets and tech on the multiplayer map could have come from any sci-fi game. Units felt floaty, died too fast to care about, and the game shipped light on content, so the little that was there got picked apart. That's how I knew I'd made a mistake, and the player base died very fast. I left with it. This time, I don't want to hype, and I also don't want to doom. I want to look carefully and ask the questions that matter. Because I'll be honest about where I'm standing. I really want this game to work. Probably more than is healthy. And after 2017, I don't fully trust my own excitement anymore. This time I need something sturdier than my feelings. The creative director of this game, Jan Taysen, said this in an interview. That they're not competing with Dawn of War 1, but they're competing with your memory of how it felt to play it. I've got a lot of these memories. Some of them are literally on YouTube. But it's not just nostalgia doing the heavy lifting here. Dawn of War 1 is still a really good game. Relic remastered it this year and sold a ton of copies, in 2026, because it holds up. So fine, you want to compete with my memory, but that's something we can actually test. So this is where I'm putting things. I don't want to fixate on the review scores or the launch week player counts. Dawn of War 4 will have pulled it off if 1 year after launch, it's still holding a player base, still being patched, still being developed. Because the thing that actually killed Dawn of War 3 in the end wasn't the backflip, it was that they gave up on it. They even teased the Necrons at the end of the campaign. As a Necron player, that got me so excited, and then they just hung up the phone. No Man's Sky was hated way harder at launch around the same time, and it became a classic because people kept caring. Dawn of War 3 got a couple of updates and a funeral. They had no faith in their own product. And this is the first genuinely good sign. Dawn of War 4 already has a public year-and-a-half roadmap, crusade mode, mission editor, a 5th faction. That is a serious commitment made in advance where everyone can see it, which is the opposite of what killed 3. So, the worries. After my last video, the comment section turned into one of the better Dawn of War design discussions I've read anywhere. Genuinely, have a look yourself. Some fantastic points were made. A few worries keep coming up, and I'm taking this as an opportunity to address some of them. One thing is that people who've been collecting and playing these armies for years are saying that they can't tell what's happening on the screen. Black Necrons on dark maps. I've spent hours frame by frame in these battle reports. I know every unit in the universe, and I can tell what's what. But I'll admit I still have to try really hard. The camera's zoomed out further than the old games, and there are way more units, which is cool, but it costs readability. And yes, the second battle report was almost the worst case on purpose. It had this classic dim Necron colour scheme that was standing on the new Necron Creep Dominion mechanic, which is also the same colour. Grey robots on grey glowing ground. The devs have apparently already responded to this on their Discord, and a lighting and contrast pass is coming before launch, which is good, so readability is on their minds already. That Total War style unit banner along the bottom of the screen exists exactly because of this at the moment. I don't know if it's enough to just fix that, but I like that it's there. Even something small like a highlight when you hover over a unit goes a long way. And half the fix is already in the game. The Army Painter. The moment people play brighter colours than what we've been watching, instead of this showcase grey, the problem will get a bit better. I think this is fixable to some degree, and they know about it, but I think we're not going to know if this is going to get much better until we get closer to release and they do that final pass. Another thing people are worrying about is the depth being shaved off. A game's complexity is the sum of a lot of small things, and Dawn of War 4 seems to be shedding a lot of that off. Research is now free, cover barely mattered in the full showcase matches, and morale is gone. When you strip out a lot of those little things, what can be left is just making units and throwing them at each other in strategic positions. In all the time I played Dawn of War 1, morale did a lot for me. It meant that there were reasons I had to pull things back and couldn't just throw them into a meat grinder, otherwise I was just going to lose over and over. That bar told me things were going to shit before they had. It gave me a reason to fall back. Now, blob versus blob is a big fear, but I think it's a little overblown. At the moment, everyone's been looking at late game footage where two armies just run into each other, and that's been footage from people with a huge skill difference. I don't think people have been focusing on the really good fights over listening posts in the early game. What I mainly fear is that these fights are going to be decided by who has more stratagems. In the second test game, you can see an Admech stratagem destroy an entire group of Necron warriors with very little time to react. They seem to have pretty low cooldowns, and I really want to make sure that doesn't go too far. Another design catch I'm not seeing too many people talk about is their senior designer, Elliot Verbeest, explained why Necrons don't resurrect when fired. He said that the Resurrection Orb would be, in his words, a big undo button for death, which would seem reasonable, except they also ported back the auto-reinforcement. So squads on all factions can auto-refill themselves during combat and while retreating even. So the undo button for death is already a base mechanic in the game wearing a different hat, but they didn't want Necrons to be able to do that as a faction trait outside of their resurrection chambers back in their bases. Some of the conflicts like that make me a little nervous because it signals that there may have been some miscommunication in the design process. But I'm holding out for more footage and feel before I call that depth lacking. I'm just seeing comments worrying about this, and yeah, I agree. Another thing that was brought up by the community is that the combat was too fast to enjoy. Alpha playtesters asked King Art to make the combat slower, not for balance reasons, but because they wanted time to watch the sync kills. I think a lot of the spectacle is tied to this, and in Dawn of War 1 the time to kill was pretty high. It's what allowed you to have these big armies duking it out in these battle lines. The community and playtesters seem to be pulling in that same direction, and my gut agrees. Make it a bit slower and let it breathe. There is a corner that they've painted themselves into though. When you give units more health to slow that down, suddenly auto-reinforcement becomes way more valuable. Long meaty fights and squads that refill themselves anywhere is how you get an endless slugfest, and when you don't have mechanics like morale to help mitigate that, suddenly things start to get a little bogged down. I'm not sure if they can pull it off with their current set of mechanics, so I'm watching this closely. At the end of the day, as long as I get to watch the sync kills happen, I think we're a lot of the way there though. The fourth worry was that the UI looked amateur. It had a rotating mini-map, unit icons are cropped screenshots, and the menus were full of clicking. I agree that this is a problem. I'm trying to see past it and the fact that it's been in alpha and beta. There's been a lot of improvement from the original release of footage to the start of the year to now. And if they keep doing it at this rate, then launch unto the end of the year is going to be pretty good in my opinion. It is alpha UI, and a lot of the people complaining don't seem to be people who've tested it. It's something that I think I'll wait and see on more. And the UI is one of the things that changes a lot between now and release. It's something that's also harder to judge from footage. When you play with things, it feels different. The single most requested feature in their AMA was custom hotkeys, which they immediately confirmed that they were implementing as they speak. So the team is listening and they're not doing anything stupid there. I'm going to park this until I can get a bit more time with it myself. Another worry is that there's no replays at launch. They've been confirmed to be in development, but it'll likely be post-launch, and for a lot of people that's a deal breaker. I understand why you might say this, as this builds community, and it's an important aspect of what became the community around Dawn of War 2. Those features got added over years though, as love was given to those games because the community stuck around and developers kept caring. Meanwhile, these devs have a huge feature list, a public roadmap, an army painted deep enough that people are making whole videos about it, and a commitment to replays after launch. This is one studio, and I think we should probably ease up on how much demand we have for this before the game even exists. I'm fine with them not shipping everything on day one, as long as what ships is quality and there's enough quantity to merit the price tag. Caring is something that they do keep demonstrating. Another question that seems unique to me is who is writing the music? The music told me Dawn of War 3 was broken before anything else did. So I went looking for Dawn of War 4's composer because I want to know, and I can't find one. It's been announced nowhere 9 weeks from launch, and the Commander Edition literally sells you the digital soundtrack. They will sell me the music, but they just won't tell me who wrote it. If anyone can find this information, please correct me, because I could not find this. I have asked about it in their Discord and tried to push for racial themes to be a part of this. It doesn't need to be the best thing ever written, it just needs to feel like 40k, and it needs to paint each race's identity. Then when you play a faction, you should be getting completely sucked into it, and the music is half of that. When an Eldar theme played in Dawn of War 1, you knew who you were. I don't want to rely on my own music library to feel that. King Art, tell us who's scoring your game. This one matters a lot to me. Then there's the gut check. Do the factions feel right? And I would say mostly. From someone with both of the armies in miniature form in my room behind me right now, they do feel like my orcs and my necrons. The orcs building anywhere, boys being free at maximum war, and dropping a giant rock for the lads onto the battlefield is the correct amount of stupid. Necron creeps slowly spreading like the planet is being converted. That inevitability is what I collect them for. That meets that theme. One thing I'm noticing though is what each faction does seems to be bleeding together. Orcs build outward across the map. Admech build a connected network in the noosphere across the map to get bonuses. Necrons spread creep, their dominion, slowly outwards across the map. 3 of the 4 factions are variations on the expand your base towards the enemy vibe. The Space Marines seem to be the only one that are genuinely a different animal. And the Admech and Necrons in particular sound very similar as a mechanic wearing 2 hats. The unit rosters and different functionality of their stratagems will differentiate them, but I'm watching that pattern and hoping that there's enough to make them different. So where am I after all of this? If I've got 10 points of feelings to spend, I'd say 6.5 are excited, 3.5 are nervous. That's okay. It's up from the last video, and that was about the journey to get here. This is about the game, and most of what I'm seeing is really good, made by people who seem to show their work and answer the community. The strangest thing I've learned reading the discussion under the last video is that everyone's watching the exact same footage and reaching completely different conclusions. There are multiple playtesters that are saying it's brilliant, and then others saying that it's Dawn of War 3 all over again. Exact same builds with opposite verdicts. The pre-release footage is a mirror, so I'm choosing to sit in the middle. I don't want to be blinded by how much I love this series, but I also don't want to be hateful from the get-go either because I'm seeing problems. This was a rough summary, and I could go a lot deeper on any of these. So which of these actually matters to you, and what would change your mind? Tell me below. I read everything, as you may have noticed. Have a wonderful day.